Wendy. She'll be there. Dr. Wendy. Wendy. Person. She helps you to understand. She does everything she can. Doc Wendy. All right, that's about 30 seconds worth.
This is Infants on Thrones. The philosophies of men mingled with humor. We are the core.
I called the witch doctor. Oh, no, wait. Welcome back to... All right, I'm going to try that again. Welcome back to Infants on Thrones. I'm Glenn Ostlund, and today you're going to hear a conversation between myself, Tom, and Dr. Wendy. Now, I don't know if she's a real doctor or not, but she is a licensed therapist, and I just sort of like calling her Dr. Wendy, so there you go. Now, Dr. Wendy reached out to us several weeks ago in response to our request for more listener-driven content, because she had an idea. She thought, what if Infants on Thrones did a series on mental health issues with a licensed therapist and maybe got some listeners to call in to talk with us about any issues they have that they want to talk to us about? What about something like that? Well, I don't know. What about something like that? It's possible, I guess. You know, Sage did his New Atheist Guide to Not Being a Total Asshole series with us, and he's talked about maybe doing another one. So why not a Dr. Wendy's Guide to, I don't know, being a more healthy Mormon or post-Mormon or transitioning Mormon or whatever. I don't know. So this is our conversation with Dr. Wendy. Since we recorded this, she's also started publishing a podcast for Bill Reel over at the Mormon Discussions podcast. So if you like what you hear from Dr. Wendy, there are other places where you can find her. And she also gives her contact information here in this episode. So if any listeners are interested in trying out Wendy's call-in idea thingy, well, there you go. You can contact her and set that up with her. So here you go. Here's the conversation. We started off by talking about Brené Brown a little bit because this was right after our Against Empathy episode was published. That's when we recorded this with Wendy. So I was telling a little story about the first time that I heard Brené Brown's name. So let's pick it up from there. Enjoy.
I think the first time I ever saw her name was my mom gave me the like How to Be Vulnerable book, or whatever that. What's the title? Is it just vulnerability?
The Power of Vulnerability.
Power of Vulnerability. And I'm like, what are you trying to say, Mom? What are you trying to say?
I just really feel that you need to be a little bit more vulnerable.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. I didn't like it.
I was surprised.
Well, you didn't like the book?
That wasn't. No, I didn't read the book. No. I didn't like being given that as a, like certain gifts are like, I've recognized a severe deficit inside of you, and I think this gift here might fill it. I've been great.
Well,
I've been on Amazon looking for The Power of Humility to send that to Glenn, and I figured he wouldn't read that either.
Whole section on books to be sent.
Nice.
The power of.
All right. So tell us about who you are, Wendy, and what is it that you're interested in doing here with Infants on Thrones?
Infants on Thrones, I feel, is a wonderful podcast.
No, we don't do accents.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we don't do accents.
You've got to recognize it's 10:30 here.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, once in a while I might venture over to some other podcasts and listen to what they're discussing. Uh-huh. And I just think sometimes this thing about religion is always hurtful and harmful. And I've got family in the church, out of the church. And as a therapist, I'm still working with population of everybody from fully active, transitioning in many ways. I've been working with folks about 20 years. I took a year or so off. And a lot of those folks have been members of the church. And it's been a really fascinating journey, an interesting journey. There's certain challenges that members of the church have. And frustrations that therapists who work with Mormons have certain challenges. And that's an interesting part of my story. But I just wanted to reach out and see if there's a way that we can kind of bring everybody back together on this journey and talk about those challenges, because when we leave Mormonism, even if those of us or them that leave Mormonism are going to take a lot of that with us. And, you guys have commented on that and talked about that as well. So the thinking was that wouldn't it be cool if we could do a call-in show or have people send in questions or send in their interest on topics and have some time with a therapist and discuss some of those issues and topics. And there's just so much and so many issues and ideas that are fascinating.
Right. So do you have a lot of clients that actually come to you specifically because of their faith transition kind of issues?
I have some. But there's been a lot of focus on helping that group of people, but I'm still interested in, and I don't know your listenership is still interested in that, or if there's interest in delving into that. But everybody's got family members, and we're all still very connected, and it's still fascinating stuff to look at, what's going on and how do we get here?
Right.
Where do we go from here?
Yeah. Where do we go? Where now? Where do we go? Where do we go? Okay, wait. Stop that.
Well, let's just cut to the chase. Where do we go from here? Do you have like the magic bullet, the answer to that question? Because I don't.
Where do we go from here as a podcast? As a
no,
church,
no,
as
no,
a
no,
country,
no. Like when yeah, I probably should have been more clear what I was thinking. With the family members who are believing in one thing and other family members believing in another thing, how do you bridge that gap when, like, especially in Mormonism, where the cost of entry, the cost of fellowship, paying your dues means that you are a believer, and as soon as you're not a believer, then there's something wrong with you. Like you're kind of like, I don't even think it's consciously shunned. It's just kind of like, ooh, this person's scary. Am I even right in saying that? That's my perception of it. Do you agree with that?
It all just goes back to that cognitive dissonance. I can't. You're giving me new information, and so what are the ways that we reduce cognitive dissonance? You either change with, justify against, or you become indifferent, make yourself indifferent to that discrepancy. In other words, I don't even care anymore. It doesn't really matter. And that's where so many people go. I don't care. It doesn't matter. But I feel we're leaving behind, and I guess I feel like we're leaving behind a family. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that as a person. I don't want to do that as a family member. I want us to, maybe I'm just being, it's pie in the sky, but if there's anything I can do to help kind of bring us back together and understanding
right
what's going on, because I've gone through this myself with people, leaving, going down the rabbit hole, coming back, in every single variation within my family, my immediate family, my broader family. And we've got TBMs, atheists, everybody, and we're doing great. And we're doing well, really well.
Really? So no like ugliness or cautionary tales sort of situations?
Well, a lot of the things, like I said, we've really talked about quite a bit or have been covered on so many podcasts, but it's I think taking it slow, and that's a really huge question right there. So I don't know if I want to we could really cover dealing with the faith crisis exactly. So
right.
What what if this is a sea change? What if this article is indicating?
Wendy's referring to an article that we're going to read and kind of smack down or smack around in a little bit. It's a BYU article. We'll get to it, but she's wondering if this article is an indication of change.
What if this is a sea change? What if this article is indicating that we can have these discussions? And my big concern is the mental health of people in the church and people that are transitioning. It's a whole lot of people that even if, no matter what their situation, LGBT, transsexual people who want to stay in the church, they don't want to leave that family. So then what do we do with this stuff? What do we do with the propensity we have towards perfectionism, which then leads towards feelings of unworthiness? If the definition of depression is feeling worthless, unworthy, and hopeless, then maybe we need to look at that. How does perfectionism feed right down into that?
So let me ask for some clarification, because I'm a little bit confused. When you gave the example of somebody who maybe is transgendered and they want to stay in the church, they don't want to leave their family. I think that's what you said. Are you
the church
equating
family?
Yeah, so when you say family, you're talking about the church, but before you were giving examples of family members who some have left the church, but they haven't left your family. They're still part of the family. I guess that's, like, so for somebody who's in a position for whatever reason, they don't want to leave the church because they're afraid they're going to lose that community. You're also trying to say you don't have to lose that community in leaving the church. It's not like an all or nothing sum game, and there are some skills and tools that you can have that will bridge the gaps that kind of naturally arise when you leave, with that cognitive dissonance, or for whatever that those gaps are. Am I tracking that right?
I think I did not follow that. It's just give me one more shot at that.
So
Sorry.
you can leave the church, right? You said that in your family you've got atheists and you've got TBMs, but you're all doing great and you're like a supportive, loving family together. So do the atheists still attend church faithfully and regularly, or are they not?
The people that are atheists would be more like not the inner circle, but the cousins.
Yeah.
So
I guess because the way that you said it when you gave the example about a transgender person, that they don't want to leave the church, but they feel like there's no alternative. So I'm asking, if they did leave the church, is there still a way that they would be able to maintain connections with their family members, like their literal family members, not like the church family?
I mean, that would just be totally dependent on each individual family member. I mean, if they're coming to me as a client, then I can, I have to assess what's going on with your family. Is it going to be more healthy for you to disengage? What's the healthiest thing given the situation you have with your family members? What kind of communication skills or tactics can you use to lessen the pain? And then we would just work through that. How do you talk to people? How do you say, I appreciate you, I love you, you've been my greatest support, and now I really just hope and pray that you can support me as I go on my journey out of the church. Helping them with how to say things, but we have no control again over what the reaction of the family is. So yeah, there is no magic there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's every different kind of family in the church.
So I'm trying to get your like objective is you want everyone to be together, right?
If we can help people with their mental health issues in the church, are they not going to be better equipped to deal with faith transitions of their family members? Sure. If they understand all these things that are going on, that's going to be a healthier culture. Mm-hmm. Healthier culture for them, healthier culture for the people leaving. That's what I'm saying. We can't separate it out and say we're going to just talk about what it is like for people leaving the church, ex-Mormons, and not talk about the the LDS culture. I only know the Brigham Young group. I'll stipulate that. But I just don't want to leave. I feel like what podcast is there ever going to be? There's not going to be. And I mean, I guess there could be, but there's not going to be a church-sponsored podcast where people call in with their mental health issues. It's just so difficult for people. They're trying to find a therapist, and they say, I have to go to you because I can't go to someone who's not a Mormon. The Mormon therapists won't understand what I'm talking about. I mean, over and over again, people do not want to go to non-Mormon therapists. There are not enough therapists. There's not enough good therapists out there in a lot of places to address this stuff. And it's not just Mormons who are ignorant. People in general are pretty not knowing about a lot of just basic psychology, basic principles of how to live happily. So if we can provide some kind of forum for that, I'm willing to chip in and do my part.
Right. Well, can I ask one follow-up question to something you mentioned about, because I also know a lot of people and friends and stuff like that go and find professional therapy. And often that gets thrown around where I want to go to a therapist that's either a non-Mormon or never Mormon or an ex-Mormon, or obviously there's the ones that want to seek out the ones that are Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that as a therapist should be discouraged? Because it seems like that's kind of like lending your hand that you have a bias. Like you're going to come at it with an angle, or at least your therapy sessions, you're going to come at it with a pro-church approach, or even kind of an against church approach. Does that make sense? Because I guess I just assume that most therapists should be fairly objective.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Tend to lean one way or another, but I get
how do you think that works in reality? I mean, I don't think it works too well. And I think what happens is word of mouth is like, if you go to her, it's a safe place. She's not going to say you should stay, you should leave, or what you should do. She's just going to help you work through what you need to work through. And it's okay. You can go to her. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I guess it's kind of just acknowledging that, hey, even therapists have their biases, and you just kind of have to find one that fits right. Right. Yeah.
It's challenging for people. That, like, even, who do I want to go to for my marriage issues if it involves, one person who's wanting to leave and one person who's not. Okay, well, I want to go to a therapist who's TBM. Well, I want to go to one that's more open. So maybe I want to model that as therapists we can work with everyone, and we should be able to, and just have a neutral ground.
Right.
I don't like it when therapists are using that as a second sacrament meeting. That's not what I do. I don't think it should be kind of a priest-crappy prayer circle thing.
Is there any ethical bounds with getting licensed where that you shouldn't be bringing your religious persuasion into it, or is it kind of open?
It's what the person brings to you. And if they say, I'm Buddhist, I want to work from, I know you're not a Buddhist, but I want to work from a Buddhist perspective. And that's what I believe. Do you feel like that's something you're up to speed on enough that you can work with me and you're open? And then the therapist can say, absolutely, I have no problem with that. That'd be great. I'm a Christian, but, or you just don't say. Gotcha. So if they bring it up and bring it to you, then you use it. But if religion's not brought up, you don't bring it up. But the thing is, we just have this bubble of Mormons and bubble of Mormon therapists, because usually people will call LDS Family Services, and that's where they get the referral. And so they're looking for that. They're looking for someone who's approved that they can go to. And so already, they call you. invariably they will say, "You're LDS, right?" They want to double check. They want to make sure.
Right.
And a lot of it's just communication stuff. So like, well, if I tell another therapist I have to, I can't quit my job, my calling in mutual, they won't know what I'm talking about. And, I think there are many therapists that could work very well with them, but it's just a mindset that we have, and it's really tough for folks to get over that. They just want someone who understands where they're coming from. And a lot of it is because we have all these, one of the topics that I'd love to cover is the unwritten rules of cultures. So in our podcast, that would be, what are the unwritten rules of Mormonism? And they don't go away when you leave Mormonism. It takes sorting through it. This is, every family, every system, a church, a ward is a system, the broader church is the larger system. Your family that you grow up in is a system, and every system has unwritten rules that we just follow. Nobody gets up and sacrament meeting and reads all the rules. It's like in my family growing up, my dad had epilepsy. He just had, it was nocturnal. He mostly just had these seizures at night. And looking back on my family life, it's so fascinating to realize no one ever said the word epilepsy, nor do we say the word seizure. We never had a meeting. No one ever sat us down and say, okay, we're not going to say seizure. We just knew. We don't say epilepsy in this family. We never talk about that. And so, well, what do we call it? We called it a thing. Dad had a thing last night. And that, because there was so much shame involved in it. So what are the unwritten rules that we create within our culture? Because they're extremely powerful. So that's a super interesting topic to go through.
Yeah.
So just so that listeners understand, we did this series with Sage, the new atheist guide to not being a total asshole, which allows you, a little bit of asshole wiggle room.
But you can be partial.
You can be a partial asshole. And so we're kind of thinking about the same type of format where you would become the sage.
Right.
And if there are listeners who want to talk with you as a therapist and do that as part of an episode, then they would contact you. And do you have like contact information where they can reach out to you?
They can just message me on Facebook at Wendy Merrill Perry, or they can actually go to my music website and hit contact and email. The website is Kids Sing America, but it's kids with a Z, KIDZ, Sing America, all one long word. And they can email through there.
Okay. And we'll put that on our website. So if there's people who want to get in touch with Wendy and set something up, and then when they do that, you'll grab one of us to come on with you, kind of the way that Sage did, and we'll have a conversation with people, and we'll see how that goes. That's the idea, right?
Yeah, that's the idea. I think that'd be fantastic. And it's all going to depend on what the interest is and direction people want to go.
I say, did you hear the latest episode of Infants on Thrones? Age 7. Shh.
Hit? Oh yes, and I rather enjoyed it. That Randy fellow sure has an artistic way of painting in expletives. R2.
Miss? Shh. That he does. If only there was a way to listen to Infants episodes earlier and commercial-free, and to gain access to interactive bonus content like video blog posts and other things. H9.
Hit! Well, you could always join the Infants Patreon page. Shh. Apparently they aren't going to stop talking about it until everyone has joined.
Shh.
D2.
Miss? Well, they may turn off most of their audience that way. H11.
Hit! Only those who don't really care that much about keeping the infants around. A1?
You just convinced me to sign up for Patreon. And also...
You sank my battleship.
The game you can play anywhere. Battleship.
And Infants on Thrones. Hey, want to listen to Infants on Thrones without these annoying little self-promoting, come on already and join us over on Patreon commercial thingies? Well, then come on over already and join us on Patreon, because for as little as $1 per episode, you can listen to commercial-free episodes, have access to special Patreon-only bonus content, and most importantly, bask in that warm, glowing feeling of knowing that you've helped support a podcast that entertains you and that you maybe actually kind of sort of enjoy. So come on, $1 per episode. You can swing that, right? Everybody's doing it.
And so then you also brought tonight this document for us to read and do kind of a smackdown on. Maybe you could introduce what this is that we're going to look at.
Well, the BYU Magazine of Spring 2017. So this just came out. This is by Lisa Ann Jackson Thompson and Peter B. Gardner. And I thought it was someone told me about it. They said, I don't know if it's that good. And I said, well, let me take a look at that. And I was blown away by it. I thought it was pretty amazing that we're now able to talk about these things in a publication that's put out by BYU.
And when you say these things, talking about anxiety and depression among BYU students, is that what it's about?
Yes. The article is in a time when young adults seek help for anxiety and depression like never before. And they're citing statistics that show that this American College survey shows that 30% of college students feel depressed, and BYU students aren't any different. And acknowledging what are some of the things that predispose these LDS students. And then when it goes on and talks about missionaries, there's a whole section about missionaries. There's a lot of really, really good stuff in here.
That is kind of surprising that the BYU students are no different than other students, and that would make it through like any kind of propaganda, like screening. BYU students are not like other students because we have the Holy Ghost, we have the Spirit. So why would we do? That's what I would expect, right? But that's not there. So yeah, that's a interesting.
30% of students depressed at some point, and it says that the statistics for BYU students, just held. It says that the trend held true for BYU, where the data from the psychological services showed blah blah blah. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and talking about more people seeking help suggests decreasing the stigma surrounding mental health concerns. And that's kind of where I come in as a therapist, and understanding the frustrations with LDS clients. A lot of times there's just a huge amount of stigma still. Here we're in 2017. And it's not just Mormons. I mean, it's everybody. But there are certain things that just tie down to that culture, that idea of individualism and perfecting ourselves, and we can do it on our own. We're this communal church, but yet we're not communal. We're dependent upon each other, but at the same time, there's a lot of shame about it. And I just hear it over and over. Well, he won't come to counseling. He thinks that's whatever, The idea, and then talking about appropriate medical interventions, and including counseling and appropriate medical interventions. I cannot even tell you the numbers of people in the church who still think taking any kind of medication for a mental health problem is either a sin or the ultimate sign of failure.
Sure.
I don't know if you've run into that.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. Family members who, there's just this shame about it. I mean, people that can't function, maybe they can't even take care of their families, but they will stay stuck like that rather than take medicine. So now we have it in an article from BYU, so you could pull that up. Talk to your family member. It talks about the perfect storm of coming to BYU. I have had children go to BYU. I know what happens. You go there, and you've been the top of your class. Talks about you get there, and this just decreased structure, rising expectations, and they talk about a penchant for perfectionism. from BYU students. That's pretty powerful and amazing that they're acknowledging that.
Yeah.
So that was really good.
So do you want us to read this?
It's really long.
No. I mean, just what you sent to us. It's just, what, 3 pages?
Yeah.
4?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Go ahead, someone start.
I'll start. Perilous perfectionism. What? I can't quite get the perilous. Why is the perfectionism perilous on there?
Okay. To mention Brene Brown, she calls it toxic. They called it perilous. Okay, is that a softening? I guess. It's perilous. It's dangerous. Perilous is dangerous. So
Yeah.
I mean, they're not pulling too many punches with that.
Okay.
Do you think?
They're just trying to go for the alliterative perilous perfectionism.
There you go. There you go.
I couldn't get past the
Alliteration.
alliteration to figure out what they're actually trying to say with it, so that helped.
You got it.
Like the
Alliteration.
toxic,
Yeah.
the peril. Yeah, right. Okay. So perfectionism is a term that surfaces again and again when talking about anxiety and depression with BYU experts. And that is little wonder at BYU, where the average incoming freshman excelled in high school sports and the performing arts, had a 3.85 GPA, and scored 29.2 on the ACT. In 2016, 54 applicants earned a perfect 36. After gliding from achievement to achievement through adolescence, always near the top of their class, new BYU students often face a stark new reality when they step onto campus. They are suddenly right in the middle of the pack. It's the big fish in a little pond scenario?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
And in a much more challenging college environment, the common experience of a first bombed midterm or final paper flop can be easily distressing.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody relate to that personally?
No.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I already knew I was average. I went. So, yeah, that didn't happen to me. But it definitely happened to my daughter. It was hard for her. You're somebody, an athlete, or you're the head of the dance team, or you're somebody, and then that's kind of typical of college students in general.
I do remember taking one class it was a communications class, and the professor on the first day said, "Look, I grade this class on a bell. There's going to be 4 A's, there's going to be 13 B's, there's going to be 12 C's, 5 D's, and 3 F's. So, which one are you going to be?" And I went, "I'm going to drop this one. I will take another class besides, I did not, I really didn't appreciate that approach on the very first day of class. It's like, there's no hope, you might fit into one of these things, but you're not really going to be able to excel just on your own. You're going to be graded against everybody else in class. So yeah. So that's probably the only thing that I can recall that was similar to what they're describing here, but yeah.
So now we have an avenue. We have a way for parents to sit down. I guess I just really wish I would have had something like this, or knew. I didn't know. I just didn't know. To sit down with my daughter and go through everything and talk about, the perilousness of what they're going to face. And now that's on me, but I think it's helpful to have this in an article, and I just want to highlight it and point it out to people.
Yeah.
And it obviously is lacking. There's nothing in here about LGBT issues, and that's going to be a problem for a lot of people. But hey, this to me is a big step forward. So I'm gonna give it a smack up.
Okay.
So far. So you get there and not what you thought, I guess.
All right. So next paragraph, Tom, you want to take that?
Yeah. Smith remembers a student who came to him in tears after grades were posted for a course he taught. Quote, "Finally, she told me between sobs, you gave me an A-."
Gave me an A-.
Yeah.
I think I've heard that story before. Anecdote before.
And I I taught classes at IUPUI and Indiana University Purdue in Indianapolis, and I would have students that would come up to me and do that sort of thing. Yeah, but I would just say, no, I didn't give you an A-. You earned an A-. You earned it. But, what? Okay. Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
We may be the only school that lives by the scripture, be therefore perfect. Matt 5:30 or Matt 5:48 says Smith. We want to follow that.
I love how you botched the scripture that says be therefore perfect. That's awesome.
I botched it?
Yeah, like when you're saying Matthew 5:4, whatever. You did not give a perfect reading.
It wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect.
It was not a perfect reading of the scripture telling you to be therefore perfect, and that's why I thought it was perfect. Perfectly ironic. I loved it.
Practically perfect is better.
we want to follow that, but our students have this notion of perfection now, and parents inadvertently push that.
Perfection now.
Yeah. It is in students' best interest to let go of this self-defeating perfectionism and recognize that obtaining perfection is a lifelong process.
Okay, this is huge. This paragraph right here. I mean, I've just got marked all over it. Okay, there's just so much here. How are we here? How are we here in 2017 that all these students are going and with the belief that they need to be perfect now? Do you think that's realistic? Is that real?
I don't think that for some students, and I'm just kind of picturing my own circles or whatever, but I think that the level of such high expectation that they either set for themselves or they get it from their parents or friends or wherever, that, it feels like it's a now thing, that it's immediate. There's not, maybe it's like a nearsightedness where they can only see, just a few steps ahead and they don't have any ability to look far off into the future. Like, well, if I only get an A- or a B+, that's still okay. I'll still pass.
Mm-hmm. But it feels right to you. It feels like, I do think that's in our culture, that's still a deal. Yeah. Okay.
I hated it. This was one of the elements of Mormon culture that I picked up on at a pretty early age, that there's all this emphasis on appearing perfect and never admitting your failings, and I remember talking with my dad about this once, and I'm like, Dad, didn't you ever make mistakes as a kid? And I think he reluctantly admitted that he did, but said, but the brethren have cautioned us not to talk about those things.
That's right.
Because if you talk about the mistakes that you made, then you make it okay for other people to make mistakes. And we can't make it okay for other people to make mistakes, which never made sense to me for a church that says we are the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who in the atonement covers up all of our mistakes. So why do we have to be so shy of, why can't we embrace the mistakes and learn from the mistakes? And, talk about the mistakes, just dissect the mistakes. But no, we can't even acknowledge that we've ever even made them, because that would be proper.
Only to the bishop.
I was going to say, even for your dad, he was, if he felt like he'd properly repented of a lot of those mistakes, then, they're erased. They're
That's
gone.
part of it too, isn't it? That if you talk about it, if you invoke the memory of a past sin, you're dredging it up again, and you're basically invalidating any, sacrament power that erased it in the first place.
It's like, Christ already bled for this. Why are we going to rehash it, make him bleed again?
Yeah.
Right?
Jeez.
Wow. But so you deny your humanity. I mean, you look at your parents as it's a false presentation. So then
how is
just
that denying my humanity?
No, if let's say the parents are not sharing their real experience.
They are denying their humanity by not.
Not you.
Gotcha.
You're also very human. Yes.
Right. Yeah, but the natural man, which includes that's almost a euphemism for the imperfect man, is an enemy to God, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah.
It's in Scripture, man.
But they didn't quote that in here. That's what's so great.
Yeah.
So here's where it keep going, and that's where it gets problematic to me as we finish that sentence.
All right, I'll do this last paragraph. Confronting personal limits can be
Wait, go
particularly.
back. Can you go back, Tom? Recognize. Yeah, you already read it, but just I'll just read it. Okay. Self-defeating perfectionism. So we're good so far, and recognize that obtaining perfection is a lifelong process. Okay.
Oh, right.
So not now. So have we fixed the issue of perfectionism, or have we only said you've got 85 years?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it really doesn't do that much to displace perfectionism in Mormon culture. It's just kind of like delaying it, or like stretching it. You've got an installment plan for your perfectionism.
Layaway.
Layaway, yeah. It's interest free.
You silly college students who think you have to be perfect in college.
Yeah.
Don't you know it's a lifelong process?
Yeah.
And, someday when you're like Grandpa, then you'll be fine and you'll be perfect. I don't know. I'm doing Fargo now.
Okay then.
Oh,
Right.
someday. I know that just really like you're giveth and taking away here. You're saying it's self-defeating perfectionism, but in the next breath you're saying, but it's a lifelong process.
Yeah.
So we're not. It's a self-defeating process that we want to stretch out.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more torturous if we make it last.
Yeah.
This kind of lifelong process, kind of lesson to be taught is hard because I remember always thinking like, well, but I could die. I could die today. I could die tomorrow.
It's a pressure.
And if I'm making mistakes today, then I guess I'm screwed.
It's where you're pointed. It's like at the very moment of death, like where were you? That's what I always believed. So that just really, I don't know. I thought, that was going so well there for a second. So, okay. But still, step forward, self-defeating perfectionism is there. Confronting.
But even that kind of it's categorizing a certain type of perfectionism that's not okay. Like the self-defeating perfection. They're not saying that all perfectionism is self-defeating. They're just saying that this, we want you to let go of this type of self-defeating perfectionism because so they're not really attacking perfectionism, right?
Well, I don't know. It sounds like you're reading quite a bit into it. I don't know. Maybe you're right.
Why did they add this self-defeating perfectionism?
Why don't they just say perfectionism? You mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so
it says so the whole sentence is, and this is the person that got the A-, right? And it says it is in students' plural best interests to let go of this self-defeating perfectionism and recognize that obtaining perfection is a lifelong process. So they're really not getting away from perfection. They're like creating this thing that they can throw away. That it's the self-defeating part. Yeah.
Right.
No, they acknowledge perfection is a term. It surfaces again and again. Is associated with anxiety and depression, says the BYU experts. So here's my definition. Perfectionism predisposes one to depression, feelings of unworthiness, which leads to more depression, and you cycle. It's a rigid striving for goals and basing your self-worth on productivity and accomplishment. So if that's, and it's very outward focused, how do other people see me? Do I look perfect? It's not even a knowable thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
What is it? And the reason it's so insidious to me, and I think this is my quote, but it's really probably not my quote, but I always say perfection is the enemy of excellence. It's just not what we should be striving for. It's a falseness. It's not obtainable. It's not knowable, and it's a sickness. And that's what I have to say about it.
So this episode will be entitled "Against Perfectionism."
Against.
We'll just have like this whole against series, like against warm fuzzies, against happiness.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're against compassion. We're against empathy and perfection.
Against puppies.
And but I'm not perfect, but I'm perfectly fine. have a mantra. That's my mantra. We're perfectly fine. Don't have to. Anyway, so let's continue.
Okay, I'll finish this paragraph. Confronting personal limits can be particularly distressing for students who have come to believe that, with enough effort, they should be able to solve any problem, academic, social, or spiritual.
Holy cow, really? Solve any problem? Okay, so I just want to tell you, verify. I'm a witness, okay? As a therapist, this is real stuff. This is what we're dealing with. And so, LDS therapists, we got to work through 10 weeks of this before we even get to dealing with the problem and moving forward. And I'd like to see that lessened. So they believe that with enough effort, they should be able to solve any problem, academic, social, or spiritual.
Yeah, in the 3 pattern, right? So I because
the 3 pattern.
But how is that not? How is that not everyone in the church?
No, I think it is.
Is
but
it?
Well, okay, maybe not. But I think that there are quite a few people that can, with enough effort, get through it, to a certain level. But I think what you're saying, Wendy, I think there's quite a few. I don't know if it would be minority or majority or where the numbers would break down, but there's a lot of people that can't. It's like no matter how much effort you put into it, you're not going to be able to overcome a lot of issues, whether it's academic, social.
Let me rephrase it, because it's obviously going to be not obvious, but it's a percentage. But I guess what I meant to say was it's not just the college age students where some of the population demographic is going to have that idea that we should be able to do this. We can solve this problem. We just need more effort. You just need to try harder.
Right.
So that's the insidiousness of the perfectionism, because when you don't meet that expectation, and
right,
you're not going to, then what do you do to fix that? One of the things you do is to change the belief system, and that's what we help people do. Well, that's an unmanageable, we call it a unmanageable, we actually call it irrational belief system, that I should always be happy, I should always get an A, I should always whatever, I should be able to look my best and be my best on every occasion, everyone should love me, whatever it is. It's unrealistic, unmanageable thoughts, and that's what we work with, specifically those kinds of thoughts. But if it's a belief or ideal or a value that comes from God, religion, your church, or leadership, authority that you follow, how are you going to do it? How are you going to change that? And that's the problem. So then what you do is you just double down, and then you try harder. And these are the kids, the students, the people that end up, on the floor of their dorm rooms curled up in a ball. And I'm not making that up.
There's they internalize it, right? And then
a lot of problems.
So
and I am just very grateful that we're opening up the conversation, because and as willing and able the counseling departments are at colleges, there are staffed by a lot of practicum students, interns, and people that maybe don't have that much experience, and they're not always equipped. And I want the parents of those students to be educated, aware, and involved 3 pattern for you, and to be able to help just want us to be educated as a people, and to be able to work with not only our kids, but ourselves, our family members, and just get rid of some of this garbage that we've been carrying around.
Right.
Because you can't. It's irrational to think that you can solve.
So how?
Your problem.
Like I know we don't want the solution to always be just leave the church. But if you've recognized that there's this very deep-seated vein, this tradition inside the church of perfectionism as like the highest ideal. And you're a therapist and you're working with somebody who's struggling with this. This is one of the kids who was curled up in a ball in their room, or maybe it's the parents of one of them, and you're trying to educate them, which is also a euphemism for disabusing them of one of the false teachings of Mormonism, right? About perfectionism being the highest ideal. Why encourage them to continue to be in that environment and like absorb that? Aren't they just going to relapse? They're going to question, well, wait a minute, is this really right, or is this is what God wants me to like? God really, this really is a message from God. You know, isn't it? You want to remove them from the source of the unhealthy teachings in the first place?
I don't operate in that false dichotomy, Glenn, because there's Brene Brown wouldn't be selling 50 million trillion books about shame, guilt, perfectionism, all this other stuff if it wasn't outside the church as well.
Wait. Why is it a false dichotomy?
Well, you're saying if they stay, then they're still going to be stuck in the sick belief systems. Whereas if they go out,
I didn't say that they will be, but they're going to be exposed to the types of messages that created that problem inside of them in the first place. And so what I'm asking is, wouldn't a healthier place be get out of that environment? I'm not saying that it is. I'm asking.
I agree.
I'm asking if it is.
I'm totally cool with that. Yeah. It might be, but what my experience of people is, they get it. They can sit through lessons about the topic, and they can contribute now in a more educated, helpful way. And they can say, "Oh, I don't know. I saw this article, and I think that, what you're talking about sounds like perfectionism." And it is getting better. It is getting better. But if none of the people that are getting it stay, that's a sad story as well.
Editor's privilege here. No, it's really not, Wendy. And we're probably doing people a disservice by continually promoting this idea that it is sad. But I don't know. I guess I just don't subscribe to those kinds of false dichotomies. Zing.
But I think if you go through therapy and you get it and you understand it, okay, we have a problem in our culture. And does it stem from pioneer days? Where does it come? How have we gotten this all twisted around? How do we do better? And they can grow through it and still be part. They can be in the church, but not of it. They can be part of that culture, but still not absorbing. I just don't. I mean, I've done it for years. It's like, is it frustrating at times? Yeah, but it feels really good to be able to say, to contribute something, whether it's visiting teaching or you're getting visiting taught, or people are sharp. They can pick up on it. It's just moving the whole culture forward. That's all. And for some people, it's going to be healthier for them not to be immersed in that, or for them to take a break, or whatever they need to do. And that's perfectly fine. I would support them 100%, whatever works. But they're going to be they're immersed in a culture that's very sick. I mean,
I want to ask a question, Wendy, but I want you to recognize I'm not asking this as a rhetorical question. I really sincerely want to explore this idea.
Okay.
What is the value of preserving a sick culture like Mormon culture?
What's the alternative? Every culture is sick.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the answer goes back to what we were talking about earlier when you say that, yeah, you might leave the church, but you still have family and friends that are in it, and you want to be able to maintain a good relationship with them, so you don't want to be seen as being, like threatening to them or threatening to the church or whatever. But when you're talking about the church being a sick environment, or at least the culture is sick, or there are parts of it that are sick,
right.
And that slowly over time it's going to incrementally get better. Like I don't know. I'm a little suspicious of that. But what's the cost? Even if that's the case, what is the cost of exposure to the sickness that's in the culture to help it move forward into another place? Where if you just removed yourself from it and you weren't exposed to that anymore, wouldn't that be a healthier move to make? And again, I'm asking the question. I'm not like saying, this is a given and it's only a rhetorical question. I mean, really, I don't.
Maybe it
I don't know
comes
the
down
answer to
comes down to a value system, and I can't wait till we do Myers-Briggs, or you guys do Myers-Briggs, because it will also be tying into your personality. If your values and personality are
I
such
think they
that
did that
you,
Sunday night. Yeah.
Oh,
were
okay.
you on that,
Nice.
Tom?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, the personality thing.
John Heyman.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I love
Gotcha.
Myers-Briggs stuff. Yeah. Personally, I guess I have a value. Obviously, I'm a therapist. I have that in me, so I'm going to probably be more driven towards that. My son is just, I don't really care or want to go or anything. I'm just moving on. It's not his personality. It's not his value system. He's just.
Wait, are you saying that your son has left the church? Is
Yeah,
that what you mean? Okay.
He's loving and is just a wonderful.
Even though he left the church? Huh.
So
He's still loving, even though he left the church. Wow. Huh.
He doesn't
It's a
kick very
wonderful
many
thing.
puppies.
Yeah. He's not just kicking puppies up and down the stairs now. Wow.
Please take that out.
I don't know. I don't think that's the way this works around here, Wendy. You ask Tom about that.
I just want to say that even though he's just this horrible heathen, I just love him to death.
Right,
He's
yeah.
just amazing.
The name of the game is
Support the infants.
Gotcha. 4 cross. One more game.
Object? Sign up on Patreon. Do what you can to show the infants your undying appreciation and keep them motivated to continue creating the kind of podcast you enjoy to enjoy. Because when that happens, we all win.
I won. Where? I can't. Here, diagonally. Pretty sneaky, sis.
Hey, want to listen to Infants on Thrones without these annoying little self-promoting, come on already and join us over on Patreon commercial thingies? Well, then come on over already and join us on Patreon, because for as little as $1 per episode, you can listen to commercial-free episodes, have access to special Patreon-only bonus content, and most importantly, bask in that warm, glowing feeling of knowing that you've helped support a podcast that entertains you and that you maybe actually kind of sort of enjoy. So come on, $1 per episode. You can swing that, right? Everybody's doing it.
So where are we at in the reading?
So, and then this is the next part. Okay, so yeah, the next part's kind of important, and then we can kind of wrap this whole section up and
Okay.
call it a night.
Take
I'm
it
gonna
away,
do this.
Wendy.
In a recent survey of 574 BYU students, ancient scripture professor and psychologist Daniel K. Judd and his colleagues found a strong correlation between those who felt that their salvation was primarily dependent on their own efforts and those who experience anxiety and depression and other mental health problems. In contrast, Judd notes, those who understood and embraced the principle of grace had dramatically lower scores.
I don't understand what that just said.
What they're saying is that it's helps people, the faith works dichotomy. So the shift in the church that we had in the 80s and 90s and Stephen Robinson, and we started talking about, hey, there's this thing called grace, everyone. Have you ever heard of it? And, Jesus, if you team up with him, then you can be perfect through Jesus Christ. And everyone, wow, I mean, to me, that's pretty profound, because when I grew up, the first time I saw a picture of Jesus in a church, I thought there was something wrong with it. I mean, I come from the olden days when you just didn't even have pictures of Jesus in the church. That was just like weird.
Huh.
Remember my Baptist friend, she had a picture of Jesus in her bedroom. And I was like, I don't know. That seems kind of like weird. Now I tell my kids that, and they go, what are you talking about? I go, you guys don't understand what it was like before. Anyway, so supposedly now we really have made this big shift and the pendulum swung, and we believe that we don't have to do it on our own, and we have Jesus. And that's what they're saying, that when you have that in your life, then you let go of this belief system that the kid earlier said, I just know all by myself, I can do everything.
So you don't really need medication if you're suffering from anxiety and depression. You just need to embrace Jesus is basically what it's saying.
No, I don't think.
Don't let me ruin this article for you, Wendy.
I don't think. Let's see, what did I write to the side?
A strong correlation between those who felt that their salvation was primarily dependent on their own efforts and those who experienced anxiety, depression, and other mental health problems. Those who understand and embrace the principle of grace had dramatically lower scores on the
on their
not like test
on their
scores,
depression and anxiety. Yeah, that it's another way.
So this is saying that people who think that they've got to save themselves are more stressed out, right? But
I'm gonna go cognitive dissonance theory. Okay. One of the ways you get rid of that dissonance is you can add something else in. So you add to your belief system. So you don't change it. I can't change it because God said it and the prophet said it, so I can't change it. But I'm going to add something to it. Like, I'm on a diet, but I'm not supposed to have this cake, so I have anxiety because I'm going to have it. But then I just add something in like, well, I'm going to exercise later, so now it's okay. So you add something in to make it okay. So they're adding something in that says, you don't have to do this alone. You have to do it. We're not changing that because we can't change that. That's a commandment. But now we've added someone on your team and someone who you can rely on and depend on. And that's Jesus. And that's why it makes it easier for people, because it reduces that conflict between, I'm not perfect, I'm supposed to be perfect, and I feel less anxiety and angst over that, to, I know I'm not perfect now, but it's this lifelong process and Jesus is going to help me out and it'll be okay.
Right.
That's what happens. That's what happens internally, psychologically, with people that are more grace-based.
I wish Jake was on here because he's a statistician, and I'm looking at this is a recent survey of 574 BYU students. I don't know how diverse of a population that is that you can really make some kind of a distinction. You've got, but there's a correlation between those who, they're all Mormon, and so like what? How do you really get a diversity in belief of people that think that they have to be saved on their own versus that they can rely on Jesus and grace? Like, is they're really
not.
that distinct?
They're not. They're saying that between this sub study group, because we were talking about, everybody, and then they're trying that has the perfectionism, and they're saying with that perfectionism, let's take another look. Go down and say what's going on with regard to this perfectionism. I think it's not really explained very well, but how did this perfectionism, which is accompanied by this depression, anxiety, how does that work if we look at the two variables? I don't see that in there, Wendy. I don't see the perfectionism at all. Because, I know it's not in there. But I mean, even like I don't even see relevancy with it, because you've got two groups. You've got one group of people who felt that their salvation was primarily dependent on their own efforts, and then you have another group, in contrast, those who understand and embrace the principle of grace. So one group, got to do it on my own. One group, got to do it with Jesus. Both groups could be equally perfectionistic. It's just that one of them thinks that they've got to be perfectionist on their own, and the others have to be perfectionist, but Jesus is going to help them to perfect them. Yeah. So I don't see a distinction in those groups at that perfection level. It just seems like it's just a BYU article that's pushing the benefits of Jesus in a pseudo-scientific. That's proof. This is proof. This ancient scripture professor and psychologist, Daniel K. Judd, MS 85, PhD 87. So let's give him his accreditation. Yes. He found a very strong correlation between a bunch of Mormon kids
who, the ones that had Jesus in their life, they were less depressed and less stressed out. So
as opposed to
people who thought they had to do it on their own.
Yeah, and also believed in Jesus.
Right, but
they all believe in Jesus. It's just where they're putting the emphasis on faith or works.
Right. I mean, all you're doing is making this survey sample even less diverse. They all believe in Jesus. They all believe in the atonement. It's just like this really small distinction that who knows what Daniel K. Judd, ancient scripture professor and psychologist, MS 85, PhD 87, framed it as. I don't know.
He's a good guy.
I'm sure he's a good
guy. He's special. Okay, so just anecdotally or in your experience, do you think that seems somewhat valid, that the people that you've got the people that, I don't know, to me it just, in my experience,
Jesus is the answer, I mean, Jesus is the way to be less depressed and less anxious.
Yeah. If you're a Mormon and you believe that you got to be perfect, absolutely.
So stop taking your antidepressant medication and get on the Jesus pill already.
This article mentions medication. It's very clear about that. Okay, hold on. I've got something for you. Okay, hold on.
You redacted that part out.
No, listen. Okay, this part you like. Okay, I don't think I gave this part. Okay, so this next guy in the next part talks about Jordan. He goes on his mission, and it's awful because he thought he was going to be this perfect missionary, and that everyone would join the church because he was so perfect, and it obviously didn't happen. And so now he's got this discrepancy, cognitive dissonance. He comes back to BYU, and he goes into this downward spiral. I was good at masking it. People thought I was the happiest, nicest guy, but internally I tortured myself. What does he do? He turned to pornography. And then, I really wish I had used this example.
Wait, you're the one that's bringing it in as a good example?
Oh, okay. Because there's a good payoff at the end of this.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I wish they would have just put some, Jordan who was eating too much chocolate or so, I don't know. So then he says he confused the feelings he recognizes now as anxiety and depression. Then he thought they were messages from God. I interpreted those feelings as God's disapproval. He didn't want me to feel good about myself because he wasn't happy with me. Okay, this isn't a BYU article that is acknowledging that this happens.
Yeah. Right.
It's huge, don't you think?
Yeah.
This idea that, okay,
why?
Now,
wait,
here's the
but why is it huge?
Because it's, okay, let me keep going. I'm sorry. Listen to this. Jordan, so now we've got God as Punisher in that example right there. God as Punisher.
Uh-huh.
He's punishing me because I'm into pornography. He doesn't want me to be happy, so he's giving me anxiety and depression.
Uh-huh.
So we're letting people know, hey, y'all out there in the church, maybe those feelings of anxiety and depression aren't God punishing you.
Wait, did they say that?
No, but they're saying they're opening up the conversation. Okay, now
but they don't say that's not God that's punishing you for being a porn guy.
Wait. Au contraire, just wait.
Well, you can't.
It was during a drive with music blasting, something Jordan often did to cope. He finally recognized he needed help. It was a turning point. And what did he do? He found a therapist. A wonderful therapist, reminiscent of Wendy Perry, LPC. No, it doesn't say that. Through campus resources and his physician prescribed medication.
Ah.
Oh.
To combat the feelings of inadequacy that God had given him.
Right, exactly. But wait, to talk. Okay, this is the key sentence of the whole thing.
Right.
The whole entire 17 pages.
The keystone.
This is the keystone.
Okay.
To talk to a therapist who could explain the science behind what I was experiencing was so refreshing. Jordan recalls, wait for it. It was the most weightlifting, revelatory experience I had. Booyah!
Yeah, I think you're a little bit more excited about that sentence than I am there, Wendy. You got a little bit more invested in it. Okay.
He went from God as Punisher to science.
Yeah, I do not think that means what you think it means. They're not. Science isn't eclipsing God here.
Yes, it is. Yes,
no,
it is.
It's not.
Therapist and medication.
Tom.
Yeah, it is.
No, okay.
Of course it's not, but I don't know. This is a BYU magazine article that's talking
from 2017.
Wow. 2017.
Yeah, like if it was in the 70s, I'd be like, wow, that is progressive.
Okay, in the 70s, I remember one of our favorites, Boyd K. Packer, telling people not to go to counseling.
I have become very anxious over the amount of counseling that we seem to need in the church and the network of counseling services that we keep building up. There are too many in the church who seem to be totally dependent emotionally and spiritually upon others. They're unwilling to sustain themselves. They've become so dependent that they endlessly need to be shored up and lifted up, endlessly need encouragement, and they contribute little of their own.
Blessed are the poor in spirit.
They contribute little of their own.
Telling people not to go to counseling.
Yeah.
Don't go to counseling. Right.
Oh, do that again, Tom. I want to hear your Packer.
I don't have the quote, but I think I might even have been at the fireside or something. But there was actually some validity to that counsel at the time because it was a wave of everybody telling everyone just to get divorced. So it wasn't a proud moment for the profession. But I don't know. So I was experiencing.
Wait a minute. So you just said that Boyd K. Packer was right? Why did we let you on Infants on Thrones?
I don't know. I said there was some. There was some.
I'm teasing you, Wendy.
Oh, that's
such a tease.
That's okay. That's all right. Anyway, what about this part? It was the most weightlifting revelatory experience. They let that in. They let that quote go in.
Yeah, that is good.
That's very
that having a discussion with a therapist who explained the science of what was going on, even though in this article they're not going to explain what the science was, they're just leaving it at that. But that this was a weight lifting revelatory experience for Jordan. His name is Jordan.
His name was Jordan. Yeah.
Is he always try? It's like his parents tattooed a 23 on his chest because that may be why he was trying to live up to a higher standard. Okay, I don't know. Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah. So that is a good thing. The BYU article said that a therapist had a positive result with Jordan.
Right, because he listened.
The bar
to the science.
Is really, really low here.
Where do you think Jordan came from? What city? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it seems pretty elementary to you.
Uh-huh.
But
baby steps through the office. Baby steps out the door.
Having just been in this soup for so long, where it's like, can we please move the needle a little?
One little step at a time, and I can do anything.
To me, it's kind of gratifying to see this. And it's like, let me just tell you that Jordan had a revelatory experience.
Uh-huh.
And yeah. It's moving the needle towards Mormons being able to deal with reality on reality's terms.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Thank you. Well, and then it talks about knowing the signs. And I also want to say something that also will definitely get me kicked off Infants on Thrones. But I have to say,
I love Mormon stories. I like John Dillon better. Right, okay.
Well, I can always do, I'm in demand, so it's not. We had in the Allen Stake, which is my daughter's stake, they just had a wellness seminar for our Elderly Society. Now, did we get all the men there? No. Another huge step forward. And we had a little bit of a glitch at the beginning because the Relief Society president spent 20 minutes talking about the Book of Mormon and the Atonement will heal every problem. And we were like, what is going on? What is she doing? What is happening? Why are we doing this here? This is not what we're here for. It was a beautiful talk. great for state conference, but not what I don't think people are expecting that. But then we had the seminars, and people loved it. They're going to do it again, and there was no holds barred. We just talked about the science behind anxiety, depression, and how to help people, and it was amazing. So that's one other big, huge thing that's happened.
Yeah, one of the I think maybe the first time that I ever met Adam Fisher. We were in the same ward together in Bloomington, Indiana, when he was getting his degree there. I don't know if you know who Adam is, but he gave a fifth Sunday, third hour presentation to the men and the women on depression, and this was something that the bishop was totally on board with, and I think Tom, I had him come on and record a Mormon Expression episode with me after he did that, because I was so impressed. I was so impressed that it wasn't churchy at all. It was totally like sharing what he was learning in his program, what the academic conclusions were, and So I understand what you're saying.
Science.
Yeah, I understand that the elation that comes from, oh look, this is progress, even if it's incremental progress with the Relief Society trying to submarine it the best that she can. It's still progress, and I understand the reason for celebration and glee. But
yeah.
I'm just personally over it.
I do like.
But again, this is me. This is me. I'm not trying to project this on anybody else. But I just got to a point where that wasn't enough for me anymore. And when I say that, like going to church was such a soul churning. Like I was so angry and just like I couldn't do it. That was my failing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
That, and little things like that would go, okay, yeah, there's progress, but it's surrounded by so much, just crap. I couldn't. I'm glad I'm saying this now, and I'm kind of reliving this, because there's times where I consider, like, I wonder if I could go back and try it again and just see. Just so that the girls can have friends in the neighborhood that are Mormon friends, or maybe like the social aspect we could capture. And like, no, I can't. Yeah. It was too caustic on me emotionally, and I don't think that 5 years of doing Infants on Thrones has changed that.
You need a little therapy first to work through some of those issues.
I've heard that it can be quite a revelatory experience. Actually,
can be.
Yeah.
I want to tell you something else though about that experience with the Relief Society president.
Mm-hmm.
After the seminar, she came up to me and she said, "I am so worried. Did I just tell everybody that they can fix their problems with the Atonement and the Book of Mormon?" I said, "Yeah, you kind of did." I wanted to make her feel better, but I had to be honest. And she goes, "Oh, I'm so worried about that." I go, "Well, you can fix it." Fix it? She's like, and she apologized to some people.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was pretty good. Yep. Actually, the thing I was going to say that was going to get me kicked off Infants on Thrones was there's some pretty good stuff on LDS.org on their mental health. They've got a mental health section.
Yeah, but there's also a lot of crap on LDS.org too.
Yes,
so.
yes.
Well, I mean, I had an experience. We were doing something. I don't even remember the episode now, but I was watching a video about the way that people talk about religion in the workplace, and I was shocked at the message on that video on LDS.org, because it was telling it was the HR person telling the over exuberant Mormon, knock it off. Quit sharing your faith with people, and by like suggesting that if you just go to church, then your problems will be solved. And there was something like that. It was
a video on there.
Yeah, it was a video. I included an excerpt of it in whatever episode that was that we did. But yeah, that. So. Well, I agree with you. There is good stuff on LDS.org. Sure, why not?
The problem is, this is why I'm here. That information does not get disseminated. It does not even get to the level. My son's in a bishopric. I asked different people, what is your awareness of the mental health pages on LDS.org? And they don't know. They don't even know in the leadership. And they could be doing those fifth Sundays. They've got everything they need. It's right there. And yeah, okay, the first few articles will be ensign articles or something, but then they'll go to Mayo Clinic and all kinds of wonderful websites that they link to. And I went and linked to every single one of them to make sure they were okay and approved by me. And they were amazing. They were great stuff. So I felt like, gosh, I should have known about this stuff. I felt, how would I don't know. How would I know? I could just go on there and click in mental health, but I did, and it was good. Lots of wonderful resources there. So I just, there's a lot people can draw upon and they just did that. I think 2016 is when they updated all that stuff on mental health. So there's no way that's been, heard of yet, really. The missionary preparation book that they have now is absolutely fantastic. People just don't know about it. They don't use it. We don't talk about it.
I'm going to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but I'm glad you like it. I now I want to go look at it so I can rip it apart. But like the missionary, preparing the missionaries is fantastic.
The new one, I don't know what the old one is like, but people don't know anything about it. I mean, it talks about
this is on LDS.org too.
It's a booklet. You get it from the distribution center, but it's thorough. I mean, it's got journaling. It teaches you what to do on a mission. Of course, it's not going to. It's from a religious perspective. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. But from where we were to now being able to acknowledge, look, when you go on a mission, it's not going to be dreamland. You don't have unrealistic expectations. These are things that can happen to you. How do you do self-care? How do you write down? How do you deal with some of your self-defeating thoughts? I mean, there's just real psychology on there.
Yeah, and there's even a discouraging shaming early return missionaries nowadays. Like there's at least in my circles, there's been 2 or 3 missionaries that have come home early for depression or anxiety issues or whatever it is, social phobias, and I don't see the societal kind of shunning that I remember back in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Nowadays, it's like, oh, we need to take care of him. We need to get him the help that he needs and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what? Dude, back in the day, it would be like, that boy needs to man up, says Boyd K. Packer. He just needs to toughen it up.
Love it.
Don't go to counseling. Don't go to counseling. Don't go to counseling.
That boy needs to man up.
Don't go to counseling.
That boy needs to man up.
Don't go to counseling.
That boy needs to man up, says Boyd K. Packer. He just needs to.
Love it.
My nephew came home, the first one of, the group of the grandchildren, the first one to not stay. Oh, my goodness. I mean, it was the grandparents. I mean, they had to go through a huge education. And then his brother also came home early. So they finally just relented and go, oh, well,
Right.
So they had to make that shift. And I think that has changed a lot. Yeah. I didn't marry a guy that I liked because he came home early. I mean, that's how, honestly, I thought that was just horrible. He just, oh, sorry, Randy.
Was he listening? Is that what it was? He's like, is she talking about me?
I never know. I don't know whatever happens to him. He's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, I just remember writing him, you could not even give 2 years of your life, and the Savior gave his life. I just feel so bad. I did that.
Wow.
Because I went to BYU. I was dating him, and then I went to BYU, and then I got all indoctrinated, and then I was, yeah. Well,
and then you ended up having to marry the loser you're married to now, huh?
No, actually, that didn't work out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but yeah, I like how it ended up in the end.
Yeah,
Husband I have now.
Because his lack of commitment to God was very weak. Yeah.
Well, it was indicative. I felt it was indicative of other problems. Commitment.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sorry, Randy.
All right. So why don't you give your information again and any pitch you want to give to listeners to come to you so you can generate some episodes with them.
Yeah, let us know if you have any particular topics that you would like to have us or me discuss, and you can message me on Facebook at Wendy Merrill Perry. Good Mormon name there in the middle too. Merrill Perry, Wendy Merrill Perry. Or you can go to my website, which is my music website, but you can click on the contact and email. It's kidsingamerica.com, and it's kids with a Z, KIDZ, singamerica.com. And buy my CD while you're there.
What's your CD about?
Do you really have a CD? A music CD?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. Wow.
And I like 5-star ratings on iTunes for that as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. It teaches it's for children 5 to 12ish, and it teaches them about American history in a fun and not corny way.
Right.
It's awesome.
And I think that's probably going to play us out.
There's a place called America, a country that I love. It may be where you were born, or a land you're dreaming of. From sea to shining sea.
Hi, this is Skylar from West Haven, Utah, and I have met several prophets through my life. Oh, and did I mention I've seen Jesus? I can't count the number of times I've met that guy. I've also met Elijah once. Oh, did I mention I work in a hospital psychiatric unit? You can comment on this episode on the website, infantsonthrones.com, and if you really like what you hear, give the Quorum a 5-star rating and write a short review on iTunes. I did. Anyone for the closing prayer?
Baby steps? It means setting small, reasonable goals for yourself, one day at a time. One tiny step at a time.
Baby steps.
Thank you for listening to Infants on Thrones.
Hey, want to listen to Infants on Thrones without these annoying little self-promoting, come on already and join us over on Patreon commercial thingies? Well, then come on over already and join us on Patreon, because for as little as $1 per episode, you can listen to commercial-free episodes, have access to special Patreon-only bonus content, and most importantly, bask in that warm, glowing feeling of knowing that you've helped support a podcast that entertains you and that you maybe actually kind of sort of enjoy. So come on, $1 per episode. You can swing that, right? Everybody's doing it.